Hey guys, Ezra here and welcome back to another movie review. And on today's video, I want to talk about 28 Years Later. But before we start, I just want to let you guys know that I was actually sick for the past weekend. So I think my voice might be a bit different, or I talk a bit more slower this time because my throat is still kind of hurts. But yeah, I was actually planning to watch this movie last week. But I got delayed, because of my sickness. But I think that was actually a blessing in disguise, because that gave me the chance to watch several of the other YouTubers' reviews, like the non-spoiler one, obviously, and they all seems to say that the trailer doesn't represent the movie, and the movie basically became entirely something else. So I watched this movie with that mindset with my friend, and yeah, I think we both agree that I like this movie. I think because of that knowledge beforehand, I think that might affect some of my opinions of this movie because I know that it's gonna be a different one compared to what the trailer has been marketing. Because from the trailer it seems like this movie will be just a really horrible, not horrible, but I guess like a really scary and intense zombie movie, but it's the kind of movie that still have some intense moment, obviously when the infected appear on the screen, but they're not the main focus. The main focus is always been the main characters, and which I think is kind of in line with the previous 228 movies. Because based on the trailer, I thought, or I guess like we all thought that the movie is gonna be about the kid and the dad, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson and Alfiewilliams, and it's gonna be about the two of them trying to survive the outside world, and then maybe they're gonna come back to their island, and then that's gonna be the finale. And there's even a scene in the movie that feels like the finale. But like I said, this is gonna be a spoiler review, so if you guys haven't watched the movie, then make sure you guys watch the movie first and then watch this review. Because again, I thought that well, there's no point for me to do like a non-spoiler review because it's Monday, at least for my time. So I'm assuming that a lot of people already watched the movie, so this will be a spoiler movie review. So again, be warned, if you guys haven't watched the movie, then do not watch this review. But either way, I think we're gonna start with the praise that I can give for this movie is actually the performance for all the actors, but I do think Alfie Williams, who plays Spike, our main characters, is just amazing because usually when you have like a child actor, there could be a hit or miss, but I do think Alfie Williams is such an amazing actor, and I think Spike, the characters he's playing, is just like a really likable character that you are actually really rooting for him to succeed on his mission. And obviously, we also have Aaron Taylor Johnson play Jamie, which is Spike's father. And spoilers, obviously, he's not in this movie a lot. And that's pretty much becoming the differences in from the marketing and the movie, because the movie is more focusing on Spike and Isla, I think, or Ila, something like that. Played by Jodiecomer, which is Jamie's wife and Spike's mother, and then he has a mysterious illness, and that's pretty much became the main plot of the movie. Where the Aaron Taylor Johnson part is just only the act one of the movie, the first like 20, maybe 30 minutes, and after that it became something else. And I think that's like one of the biggest reason why so many people are let down by the marketing because it seems like misleading, which I kind of see why. And that's why I think that me seeing this movie way later than everybody else again feels like a blessing in disguise because I know what to expect now. Because I think if I see this movie blind without any reviews, then I think I will be maybe a bit more disappointed because of like how different it is from the marketing. But because I have a knowledge now, I actually like it even more, to be honest. I like this movie. I'm one of the people that actually like the movie. um, and the other things that I want to praise is the other characters named Dr. Ian Kelsom, played by Ray Fiennes. And to be fair, he's not in this movie a lot, but I do think that's the purpose of his character. That I think we're gonna learn more about him in the other two sequels. Because this movie is gonna be a trilogy. And I like his character. I like his performance as well. from the trailer, he seems to be like a crazy guy that built this bone temple, right? And at first I thought that there is going to be some cult that was involved in the movie, that might maybe worshipping the infected in some way, because that's like some people has been theorizing, but that's not the case, because the context in this movie are way different than it is, because Dr. Kelsons is actually a good person, and Ray Fiennes play him so well. Like he making him like looks weird, but you actually sympathize and like the guy, because he is actually genuinely tries to help other people. And you also find out a different meaning about the bone temple that becomes like one of the emotional core in this movie, which I'm going to talk about that later, but before that I also want to get to the other positive part about the movie is actually the infected, because it's 28 years later. So I think the infected are evolving, and you see like two different types of infected. One of them is like the slower, like big and fat infected in a way, and they're just like crawling in the ground. And you see them a little bit in the trailer, and I thought that, oh, it's gonna be some scary monster, but turns out it was much more slower. But I think they kind of used them very sparingly in the movie, because I think they're not that scary, because they were super slow, right? But the other type that I absolutely love is actually the alpha type. And you kind of see this a little bit in a trailer, in the hill where you see like the giant big infected that standing there. And then you also see a little bit, I think, on the trailer. There's again that giant infected is called Alpha or Berserker, according to the other characters as well, which I forgot to mention. But we'll get to that. We get to that later. But the infected, the alpha infected is actually my favorite type of infected, because they are fast, they're tall, they're big, and they're smart. So they're like the scariest infected ever, because the other infected just pretty much kinda mindless in a way. Because I know that the 28 zombies or infected people, like sometimes they still have some of their thoughts there, so they're not completely aimless. But the alpha infected is basically the smartest one and the strongest one as well. And the way they kill their victim is literally Mortal Kombat or Predator, I would say, because they rip their spine off, their head and their spine, which is literally a Predator move, So I absolutely love that as well. The other things that I want to praise is actually, I think I kind of liking the editing style of the movie, because I know that this movie was filmed entirely on iPhone, and I know that not everybody liked that idea, but I actually appreciate that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are actually trying to do something new with the visual and the editing of this movie, because I think for me this movie really works because of how the editing might be a bit weird at times, which I get it, but I don't know. After watching the movie, I was like, okay, you know what? I kind of like it, even though there is some unnecessary editing in the beginning, but I still kind of like it, because again, it's not taking the majority of the movie. The way that people complain about the editing is like, dude, I feel like the editing from the first two movies way more chaotic, especially 28 weeks later was like way more chaotic, way more shaky, and I think could be way more annoying for some people. I was certainly annoyed at the movie at times, at certain times. But 28 years later is like the least one that I actually feel like shaky in a way, and I think that's why I like it the most, So I appreciate that at least they try to do something new with it, even though that it's not exactly groundbreaking, but I appreciate that. I also want to praise the scores by Young Fathers. I think the scores did a great job, for the movie, for the emotional scene as well. It really does its job. I kind of wish that John Murphy came back and then bring back that iconic theme, in the house in a heartbeat, because they didn't play the theme in this movie, which is kind of disappointing. Maybe it does play for a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe I kind of missed that. Because my friend actually heard the theme in the movie for a little bit, but I don't really hear that, But maybe I just missed it. I don't know. But either way, I still like the score, because I do think that it does work for the scene, and it was an emotional score for the movie itself, And yeah, I also, again, speaking of emotional part, I think this movie are obviously different from what people are expecting, which I understand that. But I do think the movie itself managed to create an amazing and emotional storyline, because this movie is a coming of age storyline for Spike, Alfie Williams' character, and his mother, Ella, actually, it was revealed that she actually has cancer because like Spike's mission is actually to deliver his her mother to Ray Fiennes' character, Dr. Kelson, and then Dr. Kelson kind of like did some diagnostic, I think, on her, and then it was revealed that she has cancer, I think, and which to leads to I guess like my the best, maybe not the best one, but I guess it's the most emotional scene in the movie where we see that her mother decided to like let it go, because like she was in pain, so Spike has to let her mother go. And it was just a sad scene, because like Spike worked so hard to find some cure to cure her mother, right? And then to find out that there is no cure for her mother, and then the only way to ease the pain is to actually let her go. And this gives like a different meaning to the bone temple that Dr. Council has been building, because turns out that's not a scary thing. It was a beautiful and emotional thing, and that's why I think some people might be disappointed by that, but I think for what the movie is trying to tell, I really like that, because Dr. Carlson actually view infected and non-infected as the same person in a way, where he tries to treat them the same way, which I really, really like that, because he's truly like a kind person. But I mean, even though he looks crazy, and same thing with the Bone Temple, but this leads to Spike basically put her mother's skull on the top of the Bone Temple, and it becomes this emotional scene, which I absolutely love. So yeah, and before I forgot, I want to mention this other character named Eric, played by Edwin Riding. He's like a Swedish NATO soldier where his army basically got trapped in the island because of apparently their boat sank, and they were forced to go to the island, to the quarantine zone in Britain. And we see this we see this group of soldiers basically try to fight a bunch of infected, but I do think there is some dumb moment in the movie where they got to the tunnel. You see in the trailer, right? They got to the tunnel, and then none of them are actually checking their back, checking their six, to make sure they were clean. Because all three of the characters just like looks forward, and nobody's like bothered to check their backs to make sure they were okay. Like, I don't know why they didn't do that, because they were supposed to be a soldier, and they were basically patrolling the areas to make sure that no one is like, I guess, like entering or get out of the island, right? So they were supposed to at least know how to act like a soldier, right? But they didn't do that, which led them to be ambushed by this other alpha infected, and you know, in the middle of the moment, Eric actually, I think he froze, and he didn't shoot the alpha infected, and basically letting his other two soldiers get killed. It's like it's kind of interesting that Jamie's character, Aaron Taylor Johnson, actually said that, well, at least even though the Spike performance in the beginning of the movie wasn't perfect, Spike still at least fired the arrow, even though it doesn't necessarily kill the infected. At least he still fire, and that's good, because he actually saw that some grown-up people that was like froze and unable to fire, and then that people was ironically was not from the island. It was a Swedish soldier named Eric. But I still like his character, because like this leads to like one of the funniest chemistry in the movie between Jamie and Eric. Not Jamie, sorry, Spike and Eric. And it was a funny scene, because Spike actually born on this island, so he has no memory of the outside world, or like the previous world from way back in 2002. While Eric was actually from our world, so he has like a cell phone, like the modern technology, and then you can see like these two characters just like trying to catch up, and it becomes like a really, really funny scenes a lot. There is some jokes about like allergy, I think, which is like on Eric's fiance, which I love that. So like Spike is just such an innocent boy that has no idea how the real world looks and works, and then Eric was like, what are you talking about? Like, he's basically kind of like the audience, where it's like, oh, like just a normal guy reacting to this 28 world, you could say that, which I absolutely love that. So they have great chemistries, and yeah, I love that. But because again, I love this all of this stuff, right? But I gotta say, man, the ending is really weird. Which, let's get to the ending, shall we? I do think that the ending itself is one of the biggest complaint that some people had, and I completely understand, man, because even watching it for the first time, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like this is so weird, because I know that the tone of 28 movies sometimes they could change, like you can think back to the first movie, where it was like intense and scary, and then it kind of changed tone to be fun, where you focus on the family doing grocery shopping, but I think that fun part is way more consistent to the movie compared to this one where you see like the final battle in the end, and some people have been comparing this to a Power Rangers battle, which I can see that because some people are doing backflip, which is like super insane, because we finally met this character named Jimmy, played by Jack O'Connell. You may know Jack O'Connell from Sinners, the previous movie by Ryan Coogler, which is an amazing vampire movie, and he plays the lead vampire in that movie, right? So he also plays like another fun characters, I guess, in this movie called Jimmy Crystal. And then he basically wear like a tracksuit, and then he has a bunch of people that was his followers, and and they were revealed to be like the cult that you kind of see like Jimmy's name throughout the movie, and then you kind of the intro of the movie has actually start with the younger version of Jimmy. And I thought that Jimmy's gonna be a big deal in this movie, but apparently not. He's gonna be a character that was saved for the next movie, but yeah, even though that the scene itself was absolutely bonkers, funny and just really, really weird, and I understand why so many people didn't like it. But after watching Chris from 3C Films review, where he actually, have an information from Danny Boyle to like why, I guess like the connection that why Danny Boyle decided to choose the name Jimmy for this character, and apparently he was inspired by this one man named Jimmy Savile, which is like a British media personality from the UK, and he actually passed away way back in 2011. But after he died, it was revealed that he was actually a really massive predator, a sex offender essentially, and then it was revealed that Savile basically has a victim, including young children and elderly individuals, ranging from 5 to 75 years old. And apparently the victim actually reaches like 300 apparently, which is like super, super insane. And this is basically the inspiration for Danny Boyle and Alex Garland for Jack O'Connell's character Jimmy Crystal. So from this information, from this comparison, it seems like this character, even though it was like funny, looking like a Power Rangers in a way, it's gonna be like a very disturbing character, and I think we're going to discover that in the sequel because the movie kind of builds him up to be like this scary individual that kills the infected, right? And then, especially from his opening sequence, his origin, it seems like makes sense to me that his character is gonna be a scary character. He's gonna be the villain, and it seems like with this inspiration that Danny Boyle has given with Jamie Savile, it seems like this character is gonna be way more evil than we could ever imagine. But we're gonna have to wait until to see that in the sequel, because like in this movie, it seems like he's just gonna be like a wacky guy. But it comes to the point that I don't really think of him as the villain. But it seems like that might be the intention, that you're supposed to maybe again you hate the way the tonal shift happening, and then you kind of feels like, okay, well, this guy's gonna be like a wacky character, so who cares? But I think the sequel is sets up to surprise us, where I think we're gonna find like the actual Jimmy's cult, where we're actually gonna find out that he's not a good guy, and because he was so childish, and I think it's an interesting comparison between Jimmy and Spike, because Spike seems to be a character that was able to mature even though he was only 12 years old. And then you have Jimmy with years later, or like 29 or like 30 years old Jimmy here. He's still acting like a child, like his cult is all acting like a child, literally fighting like a fucking Power Rangers in a way. So like, yeah, very, very childish. So I think that's gonna be the comparison there, because like joining Jimmy is not gonna be safe, even though that they were able to kill the infected in the end. I think Spike is gonna realize that, oh shit, like this is not a good idea because they don't take anything seriously, and I think Jimmy might have like a different motive entirely, and In the sequel, it's called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Now, from this movie, The Bone Temple is actually a beautiful emotional thing, the Memento Mori by Dr. Kelson. So I'm curious to see if the sequel was also called The Bone Temple. Sorry, not also, but like it's gonna be called The Bone Temple, which we already seen in this movie. I'm wondering this is gonna be like a direct contrast to Dr. Kelson's Bone Temple, which is supposed to be beautiful and memorizing the dead, So maybe we're gonna see another Bone Temple from Jimmy, and this time it's gonna be much more darker, because that's the only thing I can think. Because like, what would you call it, the Bone Temple? Like the Bone Temple is beautiful according to this movie. It's not scary, right? So maybe there's gonna be another Bone Temple, and it's gonna be belonging to Jimmy, and it's actually gonna be a scary Bone Temple, and maybe that's gonna be the place for the Jimmy's cult in a way, the Bone Temple, right? At least for me, that kind of makes sense, So yeah, either way, I still enjoy this movie, and I really really think that this is such a good movie. I also really like in the ending they play the East Hastings music, I think, where it plays with Cillian Murphy's gym, where he actually walk around in 28 Days Later, in the opening sequence. They play the same song here, which I absolutely love that. And speaking of Cillian Murphy's character, I think in the next movie, he's gonna come back, right? And interesting enough, his character's name is Jim. So I think, at least from my theory here, I think Spike is gonna eventually realize that the Jimmy Crystal, the cult is actually dangerous, even though they were super wacky, right? And then at some point, I think Spike is gonna run to Cillian Murphy's character named Jim, and then Spike is probably gonna be on guard the entire time because, like, well, his name is Jim, and Jimmy here is like a dangerous cult, right? So I think that's gonna be the way for the sequel to work, where Spike and Jim probably have to maybe work together to achieve something, or maybe Jim is gonna be the one who guided Spike, to the main line of British, because Spike is going inland this time around. So I'm really curious to see if we're going to see like a big cities, in the sequel. Hopefully, because I think that would be pretty cool in my opinion. And also Jamie's character, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, he's gonna come back in the sequel, and I think he's gonna be the one who try to look for her own son, because like her son basically, sorry, his son basically, went into like the inland alone, after delivering a baby from an infected, but again, I don't think that baby's gonna do much because some people said that the baby might be the cure for the infected, which is like is possible, but considering like the world of 28 years later, I don't think the baby's gonna be a cure. I think I will not be surprised if the baby wasn't even mentioned again. Just like a one and done thing. Who knows? But my point is, I think Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is gonna return to the mainland to search for his son. And I am really really curious to see what's gonna be the start of the next movie and to see the conclusion of the trilogy, because the next one is gonna be releasing on January 2026. Which is only 6 months later. I like that. But it's directed by Nia DaCosta. And I know that some people are skeptical of Nia DaCosta, which I understand. But I still think that this would. I want to be optimistic about the sequel, because I don't think Nia DaCosta can maybe direct a good sequel to this movie. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping she doesn't fumble this. But yeah, the third movie is already confirmed, and apparently Danny Boyle is gonna be the one who came back to direct it. So that's some great news. Which I'm also curious to see how the entire trilogy will conclude it in a way, and hopefully in the future maybe there's gonna be a prequel called 28 Months Later. So yeah, it's just begging for a prequel sometimes. But yeah, either way, guys, that's my spoiler review for 28 Years Later. I really really like this movie. But I also think it really helps that I watched this movie way later after everybody else. And again, you guys can kindly let me know your opinions about this movie in the comment section below. What is your favorite favorite scenes in this movie? And are you someone who actually liked the movie or hated the movie? So you guys can share your opinions in the comment section below, and please be nice, because I know that some people who hate this movie are super condescending and super aggressive about it. But it's like, calm down. It's okay. I don't think this is the worst movie ever, but if you don't like it, that's fine. And you can share your opinions about it in the comment section below. But please just be nice, okay? Just please be nice, you know. But anyway, guys, that's my review. And if you enjoyed the make sure you bite that subscribe and like button and share the videos to your stuff, stay tuned for more videos in the future. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one then. Bye.